If you're running a business, you already know that every single equipment purchase is an investment. And when it comes to pressure washers, the choice between hot and cold water, well, that can seriously impact your bottom line. So today, we're going to cut right through the noise and analyze the real return on investment so you can make the absolute smartest choice for your company.
So you've got two main contenders. In one corner, the cold water pressure washer. It's a total powerhouse against stuff like dirt and mud, and it's definitely easier on the initial budget. But in the other corner, you have the hot water unit, the undisputed champ when it comes to destroying grease and oil, promising to get jobs done way, way faster. So what do? Save money now or save time and resources later? That's the big question we're tackling. All right, here's our game plan. First, we'll dive into the science behind the power of heat. Then we'll dig into the numbers, the true cost of ownership, beyond just the price tag. After that, we'll talk maintenance and durability before we finally get to the fun part, matching the perfect tool to your specific job. Okay, let's get right to it. The most fundamental difference between these two systems is how they clean. It really all comes down to the way they interact with different kinds of grime, and the secret weapon, as you might have guessed, is temperature. This is really where the magic happens, and it's just basic science. Think about washing a greasy pan in your kitchen sink. Cold water just kind of smears the grease around, right? It's the exact same principle here. At around 200 degrees Fahrenheit, a hot water pressure washer doesn't just push grease, it actually melts it at a molecular level, breaking down its chemical bonds so it can be washed away for good. And that scientific advantage, it translates into an absolutely staggering real-world result. When you're dealing with greasy or oily surfaces, a hot water unit can literally cut your cleaning time in half, 50%. In a business setting, that's not just a nice little convenience. That's a massive drop in labor costs and a direct boost to how much you can get done every single day. And that speed creates this incredible ripple effect. Because the heat is doing most of the heavy lifting, you end up needing a lot less detergent, about 25% less. You're also using less water, mainly because you're not having to make pass after pass to get the surface clean. It all adds up, meaning you can get about 20% more work done in the exact same amount of time. So it all boils down to picking the right tool for the job. Cold water is fantastic for blasting away mud on a construction site or farm equipment. But for that stubborn, caked-on grease you find in auto shops or manufacturing plants, hot water is just in a whole other league. And here's the key thing to remember. A hot water unit can do everything a cold water unit can, but the reverse is definitely not true when you're up against oil and grease. So we've seen the huge difference in performance, but how does that actually translate to your wallet? Performance is one thing, but we all know the bottom line is everything. So let's look beyond that initial price tag and figure out the true cost of ownership. All right, let's not sugarcoat it. There's a big hurdle right at the start. The price. A cold water unit is significantly cheaper up front. We're talking 2, maybe even 3 times less than a similar hot water model. And that's simply because of the extra complex parts, like the burner and the heating coil. But is that really the whole story? I mean, if you're only looking at the purchase price, you are missing some of the most important pieces of the puzzle. This table gives us a much, much clearer picture. Yeah, the hot water unit has that high initial cost. And sure, it uses more energy because of its diesel burner. But now look at the other columns. You can use up to 40% less detergent. And this is the big one. The reduced labor cost from finishing jobs so much faster starts to chip away at those initial expenses over time. And it's worth pointing out that no matter which system you pick, you're making a pretty efficient choice. Compared to just a standard garden hose, which can guzzle 8 gallons per minute, an industrial pressure washer brings that down to just 2 or 3. That's a water reduction of at least 75%. So the real question isn't if you'll save, but how you can maximize those savings. Okay, we've covered performance and we've covered cost. Now let's talk about actually keeping these machines up and running. For any business, reliability is everything. So understanding the differences in maintenance and durability is absolutely critical. This slide really highlights the central trade-off perfectly. Cold water systems are just beautifully simple. Fewer parts mean less can go wrong, and the upkeep is way easier. Hot water systems, on the other hand, with their burners and coils, they're just naturally more complex. They demand a much more serious maintenance schedule, especially things like descaling the coil if you happen to operate in an area with hard water. So what should you be watching out for? Well, the #1 killer for any pressure washer is something called pump starvation, which basically means trying to run it without enough water supply. This causes cavitation, which creates these tiny destructive explosions inside the pump that lead to really serious damage. And for hot water units specifically, you've got to watch out for scale buildup on those heating coils and keep the burner nozzles clean. And when things do go wrong, the costs can really vary. A clogged nozzle? That's a cheap fix. A whole new pump? Not so much. But the biggest cost on this slide is the one that doesn't have a price tag: downtime. For any business, every single hour a machine is out of commission is an hour of lost revenue, and that can often cost you way, way more than the repair itself. Okay, let's bring this all together. The absolute best way to decide is to see how these machines actually perform out in the real world. We're going to look at a few specific industries to see which tool is really the right one for the job. First up, let's head into the garage and onto the factory floor. These are places that are defined by one huge cleaning challenge: constant exposure to oil and grease. And in this case, the verdict is crystal clear. For these industries, the combination of heat and pressure is, and I quote, unbeatable. The return on investment is so strong that a lot of businesses find that a new hot water unit completely pays for itself within about 3 years, just from the savings of bringing all their cleaning in-house. Now let's get our boots a little dirty and head out to the farm and the construction site. Here, the main challenge isn't grease, it's heavy-duty dirt, caked on mud and all kinds of debris. In these settings, a powerful gas-powered cold water unit is the undisputed workhorse. You just don't need the extra complexity or expense of a heating system. What you need is raw power to blast away grime, and a tough cold water machine delivers exactly that in the most cost-effective way possible. For our final case, we're looking at an industry where cleaning isn't just about looking good. It's about public health and incredibly strict regulations. We're talking about food processing. And this is where the whole conversation shifts. It's no longer just about cleaning, it's about sanitizing. The high temperatures from these hot water units can actually kill bacteria and pathogens. So for food facilities, a hot water washer isn't just a better tool, it's an essential piece of equipment for meeting critical health and safety standards. So, we end right back where we started, but now you have the framework to make a decision. The choice really comes down to this: what is the true nature of your work? Is your biggest priority a lower upfront cost for general cleaning, or is it the long-term operational efficiency that comes from truly conquering grease and grime? Only you know the right answer for your business.